Welcome to Hiring Happy Humans, where we talk about all things HR with a variety of folks, from CEOs to community partners, sharing up-to-date trends, best practices, and our wild workplace stories. Each interview is designed to leave you with the knowledge to keep your sanity. I'm your host, Dawn Sipley of Sipley the Best. Thanks for joining in, and let's jump into this week's episode. Welcome back, everybody, to Hiring Happy Humans. I am just so excited to have Jessica Brace here with me today. Jessica and I were able to actually finally meet in person after years of a virtual relationship from a distance at the PodFest Expo that recently happened here in Orlando, Florida. Jessica and I were just super blessed that it landed right in our backyard, even though you stayed at the hotel, didn't you? You did the full immersion experience.
Actually, I stayed at home because I'm only.
Oh, did you?
I was only 15 minutes from the hotel. Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay. Well, that's pretty. Yeah, I had a 45-minute drive, but it's still living in Central Florida. It's so nice that we have these amazing expos come straight to our back door. So welcome, Jessica. I know you've got your nonprofit Rewired to Rise, and it was during our conversation at the podcast and just knowing a little bit about your background and testimony that kind of got us interested in doing this together, because we do have something in common together, which is just a little bit of trauma in our background that maybe colors who we are today. And I had shared with you that I was writing a book about how trauma and neglect in the childhood can affect the workplace. But just give me, so we know who you are, Jessica, give me that 10,000 level view of who you are professionally and personally, and just some background. So when we talk today, we know a little bit about where you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a really wide background. I actually went to, my first college was international business, believe it or not, and computer science, one of the top 10 schools in the country for that. And it wasn't for me. So I decided to become an entrepreneur, and I started a website design company in 1999 before Google search even existed. I had to advertise in the yellow pages to find website design clients. So I'm like that ancient dinosaur internet old.
I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah. And fast forward 11 years, I built a successful freelance marketing agency. And from there, I went to a personal development seminar. I, come from a really, as you say, colorful background with a long lineage of abuse and addiction. Mm-hmm. And I moved away because it wasn't for me. And so I relocated to a totally different state and kind of separated myself from all that, but it wasn't going away. Yeah. It was still coming up again and again and again in relationships and different things. So I went to a Tony Robbins seminar just out of curiosity, walked on hot coals, did the whole rah seminar thing. And at that moment, I realized that what ingrained in me from that one experience, if I could say my one takeaway, was that your past does not equal your future.
Amen.
And that to me was mind blowing. So here I am, very successful, multiple six figures, working from home, online, traveling all over the world, and went to this seminar, and I was like, you know what? I want to go back, and I want to give back, and I want to learn more. So I went back a year and a half later as a volunteer, and I got hired that day. As an assistant to Tony.
You told me that story. We don't have time for that story today. Yeah. One day there'll be a Jessica Brace 2.0 podcast, and we're going to talk about that story because it's epic.
Yeah. And that turned me into energy and healing and understanding that. And I struggled for over a decade with, there's this part of me that understands all of this healing, and there's this part of me that's this solid businesswoman. And how can I bring them together in a way that people will understand the magic of when you self-heal yourself, how much better and how much more you can contribute to the world. And that was my challenge until now.
Now you got it all figured out.
Now I got it all figured out.
So what does that self-healing process look like? Because I have a feeling that you pull from multiple areas because you have such a wealth of knowledge and such a fascinating background.
Yeah. So it's not just one thing. I mean, people are so ingrained that, oh, you take a pill and it goes away. That's medicine. That's different. You're healing. You are not sick. You do not need a hospital because you had a trauma or an experience that was undesirable or didn't feel great. It's not an illness in that way. While medications are fantastic, there's other ways that you can work through this process. And for me, it was just kind of a recipe of different things through the years until I came up with like my signature dish, shall we say, in combining breath work with NLP and energy work. And for me, I have severe ADHD, which is a mix of familial genetics with ADHD and autism in my family, and then also PTSD, which can cause symptoms of ADHD. And so I really struggled with that until one day I did a breathwork session. And it was the first time I experienced my mind chatter as silent. Right. And it was so uncomfortable. I wasn't really sure what was happening to me, but I wanted more.
Yeah. So what is breath work? Because I've seen videos of it, and you know, it's such a bigger, deeper thing than what you can observe from the background. Share with me a little bit about what the practice is, and then what are you doing and feeling internally as well?
Awesome. So when I say breath work, people immediately go, "Oh yeah, I go to yoga."
Right.
Or I do box breathing to calm down because I have an app on my phone that tells me to breathe when I have anxious and stressed out. Right. Those are modalities of breath work, and they are very helpful. And I do work with those. However, what I found is that when you're really ready to dig in, there's a style of breath work called transformational breathwork journeys. And it's a journey. So what happens is we're breathing in what's called a conscious connected pattern. So it's like one of the patterns would be in, out. So it's very, very simple. But when you do that for 45 minutes to an hour straight, what happens in your body, the science of it is amazing in that you're bringing in 2 to 3 times more oxygen than what you're used to. And when that happens, your body, you have 75,000 miles of blood vessels in your body, and all 75,000 miles of blood vessels squeeze and constrict all at the same time in unison because of the significant amount of oxygen that's coming in. Wow. And what happens particularly is the brain is blood vessels, and they're constricting. So this right here is your prefrontal cortex, also known as your monkey brain, or that constant chatter voice that's like, you should be doing this. What if you do this? And they say something or do something, or you're not good enough, la, 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 that never shuts up. So what happens is with the constricted blood flow, it goes silent. It takes a nap. So that bratty little 3-year-old monkey brain actually takes a nap and goes to sleep. And from there, we can allow your body to bring up the things that normally would be on a safety lock, like monkey brain's not going to let you go there because that was a very bad experience. We can bring it up, and then we can actually release it from the body forever. So that's the process that I do. It's deep, deep work. We call it breath work because it is work. You really need to stay focused to breathe that way because your monkey mind's going to fight you to try to get you out of it. But if you stay with it, the healing work is immense, and not only for healing for trauma, but also just bringing you to your true self so that you can be a better person for business, for entrepreneurship, for working, and creativity. Creativity goes through the roof with this process.
Wow. Now, is this a one time and you're all healed and you're good and you go out the door, or do you do this daily, weekly, monthly? What is, I just can't imagine that it's a short, afternoon process.
So it's really, it's not really, healing's never one and done. I always explain it like an onion, that we just keep peeling back the layers, kind of like a blooming onion. And we just keep peeling back the layers. But significant difference. I've had clients tell me that, wow, what that one session was like years of talk therapy. I feel so much lighter. For me personally, on my journey, I had a very significant traumatic event in my teen years, and I was no longer able to focus enough to read. I lost my ability to focus and read. I had to read the same page 3 or 4 times just to process it because I was so traumatized by what happened to me. It was locked in my cells. I did one breathwork session and my avid reading came back. I've been reading books like crazy since then. It just brought my focus back, and it like re-gifted my brain with the ability to connect. And that was just my first session.
So how do you bring this into the business world? I mean, obviously you're successfully, thriving and have found this amazing healing tool, but you said you do it in corporate America. So what does that look like?
So we do breathwork sessions either in person or in Zoom. And Zoom we can accommodate. And it's really, it's relaxing, it's Zen. You lay down, we put on some headphones, we play some music, and I guide you through the breathing process. So it can be done anywhere, anytime, with Zoom. And we actually create custom scripts based on what you would like to kind of open up in your life. So if you have social anxiety, or you want more creativity, or different challenges and different things that are coming up in the professional world, we can actually create specific journeys to help you work through that. So we can match up with a corporate culture.
Okay. So is this something that executives are taking advantage of so they can be at top levels, or is this something executives are saying, hey, my people need this? How is it getting tied in?
Both.
Okay.
So it's a tool that's used for peak performance by people that are at the upper levels. And it's also a tool that's used for people for creativity, for productivity, for releasing shocks and traumas and dramas. Because when you have experiences, we all have experiences in our life. And when I say a trauma, it doesn't necessarily mean like the bad stuff. Well, some of us have that. Not everybody has that, but we all have traumas. So in studying all of that, like there's the 5 primary trauma imprints, which is every single human being has. And like one of those trauma imprints would be abandonment. And so, for example, a baby is in the crib, mom's on the potty, and the baby's crying, and mom's got to finish up. She's got to go. And the baby maybe feels like mommy took a little too long, and a feeling of abandonment wells up in the baby. That gets locked in your cells. So there was no trauma or drama. Mom was right there, right back on the baby. But at that moment in the baby's understanding of the world, that abandonment gets locked into your operating system, and then it spirals through. And so there's all these base experiences of that rejection, things like that, of the 5 primaries. And so they get stuck in our system because your operating system actually filters until you're 7, it absorbs everything. And then at age 7, it locks down, and that's your operating system for the rest of your life until you go in and reprogram it. So the view of a 7-year-old is much different than a view of an adult working in the corporate world, whether executive level or, on a management or other level.
Well, this explains a lot.
Yes.
Fascinating. So how did you learn about this? Are there gurus out there teaching these things? Because I've only heard about it kind of how you explain more in the yogi world, and just as a mean of relaxation and kind of controlling tempers or something like that. So how did you get your training?
So I went to a business retreat. And it was for content creators, believe it or not. And we rented a house, and we were all staying in a house together to help each other create content. And that was the goal of the retreat. So someone said, hey, I do breath work. Would anybody like to try it? And I'm like, oh, cool. I used to live next to an ashram, and I've done yoga breath work. Naive understanding at that point. And I'm like, I'll try it. It sounds cool. And I laid on the couch and followed what he told me to do with the conscious connected breath. And within 10 minutes, I was on a whole nother level of awareness in my body. It was amazing. So after that, I'm a seeker. And I was like, I want to know more about this. And so I trained with a company called Breath Masters in Bali, and got my certification there, from that process.
That is amazing. So what is your long-term vision with Rewired to Rise? What are you, because you dream big, girl. And that's why I love just spending time with you, because you keep me motivated to keep that entrepreneur. There is no limit to what we can create and the impact that we can have.
Yeah. So Rewired to Rise is a nonprofit that we're just in the process of filing for now. And my whole vision beyond that is Rewired to Rise, body, mind, and business. So what I would like to do is create events and experiences for people all over the world, through retreats, through conferences, through experiences, not only here locally in Orlando, but just everywhere internationally, where people can come and learn different ways that they can rewire their body, their mind, or their business to rise.
Wow. I love that. So part of with your business, you seem to interact with people in a wide variety of ways. You're doing one-on-one sessions, you're doing classroom sessions, so how did you go about building this business model? Is that it's got to be intentional? Tell me a little bit about that, because for me, I can get very caught up in my entrepreneur daydreaming, and then I don't know what to implement, or I don't know what the people want and how to kind of bring it. How did you decide on your delivery system?
So I dream a lot. The breath work definitely helps with that.
Okay.
The process of just shutting down filters of what is not possible or what can or would be too much, and just allowing yourself to float in that space of what is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that, it was really getting clear on what my mission is and dropping the how. Like, I just dropped the how of like, how am I going to do this? You need a business plan, you need this, you need that, and you need funding and all of these things. And I was like, no, I'm just going to talk about what my vision is, and the right people will hear it if I talk enough. And that's what happened.
Okay.
So just from there, it was like, last week I spoke to 500 therapists from Your Tango. Then I went on and did a retreat for 8 women. And then next week I'm speaking to 300 Tony Robbins alumni.
Oh, fun.
Yeah,
So you're still associated with Tony and his organization?
Yeah, it's kind of like a family for sure.
Yes. Yes.
And that once you're there and you're in that environment, it's just a bunch of people who understand.
Right. Yeah. He keeps very tight culture from what I understand. I've spoke to some of his employees before, and that inside circle is very valuable to him. Yeah. Fantastic. What is one thing that you just wish you could shout to the rooftops, like from the rooftops, like just something simple that you just wish people understood more or thought about or considered when it comes to dealing with their trauma?
Yeah, it doesn't define you.
Mm.
It does not define you. I could go on and give you a long bullet list of all the shocks, traumas, dramas, and stuff that occurred to
Right.
me on the deepest, darkest levels.
Why do we try to attach ourselves to events? Why do we identify and label ourselves by just an occurrence? What is it about the humans that do that?
I think it's just a belief like, oh, well, that happened to you, so then something's wrong with you. You know, like, oh, she grew up in an alcoholic environment, so she's going to do things that are messed up or not, because no, that's not, you don't have to accept that at all. Your past, whatever happened to you, you have the choice every single moment to say, yeah, that was the past and it was done. This is me now. And you can explore what your awarenesses are and ask for help when you need it if you feel stuck, and get yourself out, because deep down inside whether it's working for you or not. But so many people stay with what's not working for them because they think that's all that they can do.
And there's so much comfort and familiarity, doing something different. And I think you're right, that idea that I'm broken, that internal dialogue, and this is what I deserve. This is where I come from. This is what I identify with. When I do speak to a lot of job seekers that are in the job market, they don't even know that they can go for better jobs. They've always worked maybe in the service industry, and and I'm like, well, why don't you go into manufacturing? Well, I don't know how to do that. I can't imagine making $18 an hour. I've made 11. Well, just apply. Just the thought of applying to them is absurd. And so really reaching those people kind of where they are, and letting them know, exactly what you're saying is, just because that was your past doesn't mean you can't blaze a totally new trail, with future endeavors. Just show up and be curious is what I tell a lot of folks.
Yeah. Neither here nor there. Like, if I apply for it and I don't get it, and nothing changed from where I am now, but I think that the primary imprint of rejection would come into play a lot with like trying to up level yourself. What if I try and up level myself and I'm rejected? Then I failed. So, that's not true.
Right.
And like really working with your inner thoughts on that, and just releasing the space of it is what it is right now in the present moment, rather than whatever happened before or whatever could happen, doesn't really exist.
Mm-hmm. So with making new decisions to make a every day a new day, I know that you have gone through some big shifts in the last 2 or 3 years. Your day to day looks nothing like how it did before. How can people do that safely? Because sometimes large disruptors can be a traumatic experience in themselves. How can someone lend to changing their whole life if they're tired of this old life? What does that process look like? Because there's a bunch of tactical things that have to happen along the way.
Yeah, it really is. It's just really the number one thing is self-care. And I think that people who go through experiences and the shocks and traumas and dramas forget to care for themselves. I know one of my primary imprints is that when I'm really stressed out and I don't feel seen or heard, I stop my self-care. So I forget to.
What does self-care look like for you? Because
Yeah.
that word's thrown around a lot. I used to think self-care was, giving my day off after a long night out drinking and I needed to nurse up my hangover. So I deserve this. I've been working hard.
Technically,
Confessions
yeah.
from an alcoholic, right? I mean, that's the most toxic self-care I've ever heard of. It makes me laugh now, but how do you define that self-care?
Self-care for me, the biggest lesson for me was boundaries. So it was self-care is boundary. And it's really, really simple. The practicing detachment of in this moment, does this work for me? Yes or no? There's no, well, if they do this, this, and this, then it would work for me. No, that's not a boundary. It's in this moment. Does this work for me? Yes or no? There is no like adding to it or detachable in the past, or if they did, because that's past and that's future and that's projecting and that's not in this moment. So understanding that nothing is permanent in that space. So in this moment, does this work for me? Yes or no? Without the judgment of or expectation of, well, what if they don't like that or reject that or whatever? Because then what happens is then you stay in something that's making you dull. And dullness is way worse than anything else, because then it's not you and you're not living. So I always ask myself this question. Like today I was offered an opportunity to lead a group and I was like, in this moment, does this work for me? Does it feel light? Yes or no?
Does it feel light?
Really, does it feel light? If you or someone says, oh, hey, I'm on my way over, but you didn't invite them. And I'll sit with it because that happened today too. She's like, I'll be over at 2:30. I'd really like to see you today. And I was like, ooh, how does that feel? And I'll just pause and I don't owe her an explanation. And I would be like, yeah, you know what? That feels delicious. I really would like for you to come over and have dinner with me by the pool tonight. Or someone says that and it's like, no, I feel a heaviness right here in that experience. You know what? I really would love to spend time with you, but today does not work for me.
Right.
That like setting boundaries and connecting with what my needs were first as a priority all the time, even as a mom, what my needs are first before my kids, because I can't be a great entrepreneur. I can't be a great employee. I can't be a great mom if I'm depleted.
Right. Absolutely.
That's my biggest guardian.
I think for me, with the boundaries part, I found, having been a child of an alcoholic and an addict that was, medicating mental health issues, I very much found my value in being a savior, and a protector and an ally and an accomplice and just a doer, right? I always made sure mom was okay. And so when I found myself in the professional world, I was overextending myself because I found my value in how many people I could serve, how many people I could save, how many people I could, help fix their problem. And then at the end of the day, I'm going home and I'm not a great wife. I'm not a great mom. I'm not, but it wasn't until I realized that I am just enough, like as me, and it's not my acts of service that give me value to others. That was groundbreaking, for me. And it wasn't until I really stepped away and did a lot of healing that I was able to kind of figure that out. So I love the boundaries thing, because we allow those boundaries to kind of trickle for a wide variety of reasons and into different seasons and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, often too long. For sure.
Often too
And it
long.
was, your ability to caretake and know and understand
Right.
people's needs and create and facilitate and all of that is a true gift
Yes.
from your experience. But then it's also like knowing when that shutoff valve is of like, oh, when am I going to give that gift to me?
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
not, it's a two-way, really.
Right.
It's not just all out, giving out, which is what we're used to in the trauma, because by goodness, that's the skills that we needed to learn in order to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's selfish. I always felt good when I gave to others, so I wanted to feel good. I wanted that dopamine high. I'll be there. Someone died. I'm the first one there. I'm the, traumatic response. I do well in horrible situations. I can operate with efficiency and clarity. I don't get emotionally wrapped up in stuff because I can compartmentalize everything, and then I'm like exhausted. And then I would also found myself like frustrated because no one was showing up for me. No one ever would call me and go, so Dawn, how are you doing today? I'll never forget, I was having a really bad day. And one way that I was very conscious of, well, you giving to others makes me feel better. So who can I bless? And I had a conversation with this mom, and it was around the holidays, and she had all these tiny humans, and she always gets them a bunch of little gifts and stuff. And she's like, I'm so stressed out about wrapping these gifts. And I said, I could use some girl time. So I was thinking to myself, I said, why don't I come over and help you wrap gifts? And she was like, that would be amazing. And I go over there and she walks me in, leads me to the master bedroom, says, I've laid out all the gifts, categorized them per child. Here's the wrapping tape. Here's the tape. She opened up the door and then closed it behind me and locked me in the door to wrap all of her children's gifts alone. I was so offended. I did not tell her that I needed girlfriend time. I did not tell her that I was being selfish, and I just wanted to sit with another woman and commiserate about the holidays, because she just shared with me her stress, and I wasn't going to just dump back on her, but I was like, oh, this will be perfect. And then I left and I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, that wasn't fair to her that I was feeling that way. That wasn't what the offer was. That wasn't what the agreement was. But, to a certain level of emotional maturity, you can kind of see your foolishness, at times.
Yeah, I actually hired a codependency dating coach after ending an 18-year marriage. I hired a codependency dating coach because I was like, I don't want to go through that rodeo. I need some healing in this area. And one of the frameworks that she taught me is gentle confrontation. And it's been such a gift that my children use it as well. My 7-year-old is very proficient in it. And it's really, it's when you action, I feel, how I feel to validate myself. What I need is, this is my expectation of you. Right. And then you let it go. And then if you have to do it again the second time, it's when you, I feel what I need is, and if you continue to, then I will. And then that's where the boundary comes in the second time. So the first time is very gentle of like, hey, you know what? When you close the door, I feel a little lonely because I really wanted to spend time with you. Is there any way that we can maybe do this together? Or, but like repeat offenders, because sometimes people don't have good boundaries. Then you can lay out the next level to it of like, next time you do that again.
Yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't go more than twice. After twice, it's
awesome. Well, I am just so excited to watch how you end up rolling this whole program out. I'm super excited to learn a little bit more about breath work, and I'm definitely going to be watching your events and stuff like that. I'm gonna have to wiggle myself in to one. So thank you so much for everything you do in the community. Thank you for your vulnerability about sharing your story, because I think that your bravery around sharing what you have gone through will allow a lot of women to just drop that shame and everything that they're carrying with them, and allow them to be better women. So just thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jessica. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank Thanks again for spending time with us today. If you want more HR stories and resources, go to simplythebest.com to join our newsletter. That's SIPLEY. Until next time, stay happy.